Hi, everyone. My name is David Boan, and I'm the chair of the COVID-19 Task Force for the World Evangelical Alliance, and I also direct the Department of Relief and Development. And I've been asked to talk with you today about some information that's been circulating regarding stopping the COVID-19 pandemic. Let me start with a little bit of a personal story. Uh, I received my second vaccination just a week ago. So I am now fully vaccinated, or I will be probably in another week once the vaccine takes full effect. Why did I do that? Well, actually for a number of reasons. First of all, I believe that the vaccine is very effective and very low risk. So that's one reason. The risk of being infected and the consequences of that were a lot greater than the risk of being vaccinated. I also did it to play my part in helping my community and in protecting my neighbors. Do I still wear a face mask? Well, yes, I do. Do I keep social distance? Yes, I do that too. Did the vaccination end the pandemic and lead to local schools being reopened? No, it didn't. And realistically, one person being vaccinated isn't going to bring about big changes in the community. But I did it because I believe in the importance of playing my part. And so I want to explain that to you today. What do I mean by playing my part? How did I evaluate that risk? And what do I understand about the viruses and the vaccines? First, a little background. I am a researcher, among other things, and I believe in the importance of evidence. And I also understand how science and research works. It works by really continuously learning. We're still learning about the virus and the need for safety. We learn more every day. And as we learn, recommendations evolve to reflect that new learning. Until we know with confidence that a vaccinated person cannot spread the virus, then the responsible thing to do is to be conservative, to continue the safest practices that we know until we know that it's safe to stop doing that and do something else. It appears vaccinated people might not spread the virus, but we're still getting more data on that. Soon, that data will allow us to know with confidence whether it's safe to go without a mask. Until then, in my opinion, the responsible thing to do is to wear a mask. So let me say it again. The best and most responsible practice is to be conservative and do what we know is safe until we know we can do something else. This is really the same philosophy behind the vaccine itself. Vaccines were not released until we had evidence that they were safe and effective. The emphasis is always to do what we know is safe. For that reason, travel bans for now will continue. Face masks will still be required. Social distancing will be recommended. Hand washing will still be necessary. And those things are in place because we continue to learn and the evidence is growing. But until that evidence grows further, we'll continue to do what we know is safe. So do schools reopen because I'm vaccinated? Well, again, community practice doesn't change because of one person. Is the vaccine then only about me protecting myself? Well, no. While it does do that, it does protect me, and that certainly is one of the reasons. It does two other very important things. And before I explain those two things, let me give a little bit more background about viruses themselves. So viruses cannot live very long outside of a human or animal host. When a virus infects a person, it then sends out copies of itself to infect someone else. It has to do that to survive because in most cases, the host will eventually rid itself of the virus. So if it didn't spread, it would be gone. And obviously, viruses are still with us. In the case of COVID, the virus spreads itself by traveling on the tiny water droplets that are in our breath. That's why face masks are important. It's also why wearing face masks can protect the person wearing them as well as protecting others. That is because it can block those infected droplets, both ones you might inhale from someone else, as well as ones you might spread to another person. So it's for yourself and others. If the people around an infected person are vaccinated, or if they've had the virus and their body then develops antibodies, then the virus cannot infect them, which means it cannot spread. So you might ask, why not just wait till everyone is infected rather than go to all this trouble with the vaccine? Well, the simple reason is that if we just let the virus spread, a lot of people would die. Mortality from COVID varies widely from country to country. For example, the death rate in Nepal is about 1%. In Mexico, it's almost 9%. The most common rate's around 2.7%. So that means for every million people in a country, about 27,000 people potentially could die from the virus. In a country like the US with 340 million people, that means about 8.9 million people would die if the virus just spread unchecked. Or in Cameroon, and I'm speaking in part to my friends in Cameroon, Cameroon has a 1.5% mortality rate from COVID and a population of over 26 million. So that means close to 400,000 people would die in Cameroon if the virus spreads unchecked. So now you might be thinking to yourself, well, if viruses can't spread once people become immune, why didn't the virus die off a long time ago? Well, the answer is that viruses are very good at mutating. That is, they change their makeup into a form that our immune system doesn't recognize and cannot easily fight off. Each time a virus infects a new person, it potentially can change its makeup in small ways. So the more it spreads and the faster it spreads, the more opportunities there are for it to develop a mutation. If we stop the virus from spreading, then it can't develop these mutated forms. So vaccination and wearing masks not only protects us and not only protects others, but the other reason is it limits the opportunity for the virus to mutate into a new form. In which case, if it did evolve into a new form, it could prolong the pandemic or even create a new pandemic. So those other two reasons, besides protecting myself, are to help stop the spread and decrease the opportunity for mutations to develop, which is another way of saying, besides protecting myself, it's my sense, my belief in the importance of serving my community. If it happens that the virus mutates and there's already evidence of mutated forms, then a booster shot may be needed to protect people from the mutated virus. Right now, it looks as though the existing vaccines work against the mutated forms, but we are in a race to stop the spread before more and potentially dangerous mutations have a chance to develop. It's unknown right now if a booster shot will be needed in the future, but it is possible. The seasonal flu is an example of a virus that mutates often, and thus we need to be vaccinated each year against the new forms. And again, we're still learning and needing to see if that happens. So does that mean we should not be vaccinated now? Perhaps we should just wait and see what happens. Well, no, because first of all, the current vaccines work well, and not being vaccinated will guarantee the virus will evolve and more people will be infected, some of whom will die. So now, does this sound like I'm saying everybody should just run out and get vaccinated? Well, not exactly. There are good questions about vaccination and understandable concerns that people have. It is important to respect those concerns and respond to those questions. It's understandable that people wonder how this vaccine was developed so quickly. They may wonder, why don't we have vaccines for everything, including HIV? Or they may wonder about the side effects. How serious are they? There are good answers to those questions, but the people asking them needed to be respected, and they need to be provided with answers until they are satisfied that the time is right for them to be vaccinated. It's one of the reasons that I'm doing this, certainly not to pressure anyone or simply say, run out and get vaccinated, but to encourage dialogue. Ask your questions and seek out answers, because there are answers out there. So then, circling back, why did I get the vaccine? Well, for me, being vaccinated, wearing a mask, other safe practices was important, not just for health reasons, but also part of my responsibility under my faith as a Christian to be obedient to the great commandment to love my neighbor. Getting vaccinated took time. It made me feel slightly unwell for a short time. I had a bit of a headache, felt tired. It was not even a day. Wearing a mask is frankly a bother. Keeping social distance cuts me off from my friends and associates. Not being able to travel keeps me from going out to work with friends and colleagues around the world. But I do these things because I believe putting the welfare of our neighbor ahead of our own comfort is an act of love, and we are to love our neighbor. Consider it this way. If I refuse to do the things needed to stop the pandemic, then I'm really saying that my comfort is more important than my neighbor's safety. That is frankly exactly the opposite of what the Great Commandment calls us to do. So will the vaccine protect 100% of the people who get vaccinated? No. The reality is no vaccine ever created is 100% effective. That's just an impossible standard. But compared to other vaccines, this vaccine is very, very effective. And once enough people choose to be vaccinated, it will stop the pandemic, assuming we get there quickly enough before it mutates. If I'm vaccinated, can I go out and hug my friends? Well, no, you still have to limit that to your family circle. Remember, as we learn more, recommendations will change, but the responsible approach is to continue safe practices until we know it's safe to do something else. And that will happen, but it will happen gradually. Is the vaccine still an experimental drug? Well, yes and no. The initial testing to see if the vaccine worked and was safe was rigorous and complete. And so in that sense, it is not in an experimental stage. But we continue to collect data on things like whether vaccinated people need to wear masks or if they are protected from mutations. That's continuing to learn and improve. Rather than calling that experimental, I think it's much more accurate to say that we continue to be in a learning stage around various practices. We continue to gather evidence, for example, on the safety of the vaccine for pregnant women or for young children. And so that learning continues. So in summary, my recommendations are based on what we know from evidence, what is a safe practice. It's my responsibility as a Christian to cooperate with those practices because for me, they represent what it means to act in a responsible and loving way toward my neighbor. So I hope that is helpful to you, and I want to thank you for listening.